Hello, everyone, and welcome to Office Hours here at the Professor's Kitchen, where I sit down in my office with my beverage of choice. And I have my soul mug here today. I don't know if you guys can see this. My Starbucks mug from Seoul that has survived several trips now, several PCSs without ever breaking. So I'm pretty impressed about that. I have the pleasure of welcoming a friend and former colleague, Mark Kelly, to chat about some big changes that have been going on in Korea, specifically with ESL teachers over the last few years. Just to give everyone sort of a background on how we met in the first place, I lived in Seoul somewhere around 2013, between 2013 2015. Yep. And Mark was my manager. At that point, he was the manager of instruction at Berlitz, and he was very, very instrumental in training me to be an ESL teacher in the first place. I had never taught ESL classes before, so it was a really big deal for me to be suddenly living overseas and working overseas, and you were great and walked me through the entire process. And so introduce yourself a little bit too. Tell us what you're doing now.
I'm still at Berlitz. I'm now technically the country manager of instruction. So now I think when you were hired, it was a girl called Ciao, I think, who hired you. So effectively, I'm now in charge of the hiring side of it. I've been in Korea for in total 15 years. I came to Korea in January 2007 for 1 year because I was actually planning on being in between IT jobs. And we actually have a saying in Korea that you either come to Korea for 6 months or 6 years. And it's like, I guess I kind of stayed for more than the 6 years. I did go home at one point. I spent a year teaching actually at Berlitz in Edinburgh as well. Those people probably had less trouble with my Scottish accent than everyone else does in Korea. Like, quite interestingly, every time I go home, I get told by my friends and family that I have an American accent. So for anyone who actually is American, I do apologize for people thinking that I stole your accent at some point in time in my life. I've worked. I was originally a teacher in Yoido, which I think we're going to talk about some of the branch closures. I think when you worked at Berlitz, we had three centers.
Yes.
When I joined Berlitz, we had 5.
Wow.
We had 5 centers. I was responsible for consolidating 2 of them, which was Kwangmun and City Hall. And a long time in Korea. I'm now married with a little boy, a 2-year-old boy, who, as we were saying earlier, my father has nicknamed Cyclone. He's just like so much energy. So I've never, I mean, it's quite funny. I was talking to one of my Korean co-workers, and I was explaining how he's got too much energy and he's crazy, and he said, yeah, he's just a young you. And I was kind of a little bit concerned that he's going to be like me for a long time. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah, but it's great seeing you again. I mean, like, actually, if I want to say I'm right, we worked together twice. Once you were a full-time teacher, and then yes. I think you actually came back. Can we tell the story about almost the youngest ever teacher student? Should we not tell that story now?
Almost giving birth at the center. Yes, I went into labor. I went into labor while I was teaching a class, and just excused myself. You were on duty that morning, and I was like, Mark, I really think I need to go to the hospital. We got some stuff going on, got some movement. And your face was just priceless. Like, I will never forget that like blank look on your face. And you were like, oh, okay. I was like, I gotta go like right now.
And the thing, like the best thing about it is, like in true Korean culture, when you left, someone actually said, do you think she can teach tomorrow? I was like, I don't think so. I think maybe it's going to be a few weeks. I'm not sure. But then you did come back.
I was going to come back that night. I really thought that it was like false labor pains. Yeah. And I was like, I'll text you later and let you know if I'm going to come back for my night class. And I was actually in labor. There was actually a baby who was born, oddly enough, on Korean Independence Day, I think,
Okay.
August 15th. So yeah, he was very special. I think it was a Saints Day, and it was Korean Independence Day. It's also, I think, like Indian Independence Day or something. So he has a very, very powerful birthday. But yeah, he was almost a Berlitz baby for sure. Like born at the center.
It was close. It was touch and go at one point. It was definitely touch and go at one point. Yeah, it definitely was. It's like, can she just finish the class? I was like, did she set the homework? Let me check. Yeah, let me text her, see what the lesson goal was, that kind of thing. If anyone's ever worked at Berlitz, they'll understand exactly what that means. It's like, no matter what happens, it's like Mr. Kim didn't actually quite understand what the homework was. Could you possibly ask her what it was? Like, no, she's in the hospital. But yeah, that's Berlitz for you. Yeah. But I mean, then you came back as a freelancer. You came back. I remember you taught GM Saturdays, which is what I remember was probably about the last thing I think that you actually taught for us, which was probably I can't remember when that would have been, maybe 2015 or something.
Yeah, which was amazing. I mean, that was just a really amazing experience. There were so many, it's a little intimidating, I think, going into those classes where it's pretty much all men and they're all like engineers of some sort. There were a lot of like trade secret things that they were whispering about during class. And occasionally, when you and I know, like when we get off topic and they start speaking Korean in class, you have to very quickly redirect and that kind of thing. But they were just the nicest bunch of guys. They took me out for chicken and beer, of course, at the end of class, and they wouldn't let me touch anything. They served everything. They offered me the best piece of chicken, which is a big deal, and made sure that I had as much beer as I wanted and all of that. So they were really, really great. And they spoke English pretty much the entire time. So
I mean, that's one of those things, like we used to have that written into when I worked in Yoido, that we had that written into the program contract, that there was two dinner sessions per program, but they must speak English during the dinner sessions. So they would take you out for like barbecue, the best food in the world, barbecue, and like a couple of beers and some soju, and then one of them would always drive you home at the end of the night. Oh, it was amazing. Like they were just really sweet guys. Really sweet.
They really are. Yeah, they're just absolutely the best. So today I wanted to talk a little bit, of course, about ESL classes, and the big news is, of course, that South Korea has a new president. But I wanted to start with sort of the history of ESL teachers in Korea, and how much do you know about that? I know you've been there for 15 years now, so I'm sure you've seen a lot of changes.
So I think the biggest change was probably between when I left Korea and came back. So as I said, I came in 2007. I stayed until 2008. I left just as the global financial crisis was hitting. Korea had their financial crisis in like 1996, 97, the IMF crisis. And that's when a lot of kind of global companies, like for example, GM bought over Daewoo, and HP bought over like the famous HP Tower in Yoido. And all these global companies came into Korea and suddenly realized that actually nobody in Korea really spoke English all that well. So I'm not saying that's not where it came from, but it just there was an actual progression of a need for kind of studying, a need for kind of learning English. But it used to be, they used to joke that literally anyone with a degree, like that was the only requirement to teach in Korea in 2000, like between 2005 to 7. The only requirement was a degree, like any degree from a degree and a passport from the 7 recognized native English speaking countries. Thankfully, Scotland is actually still under the UK, so we're actually still recognised as speaking English, despite the fact that no one understands me. I hope you've got subtitles. I'm going to go along the bottom here, by the way, or like sign language or something like that in the background. But yeah, so like thankfully, that was what it was. It was like degree and those 7 passports. So when I actually arrived, I trained with four other people, and the 4 of them were all teachers. Like one had taught in Italy, 2 had bachelors of education, and one was like a CELTA or a TESOL teacher, and he was me. I'd come from IT. I was just kind of like trying to spend a year doing something different. My idea of coming to Korea was to get as far away from Scotland as I could before going back, so that if I kind of got nervous and couldn't handle it, it wasn't easy to go home.
Okay.
So I was like one of those people who literally had no teaching experience. There was literally no reason to hire me and put me in a classroom, basically, other than the fact I could speak English. So I left after a year, and then when I came back, that was when the first real change happened. And the first real change was the criminal record check. They suddenly realised that we should probably analyse the people that we're bringing into our country, particularly the ones that are going to be teaching kids. Because up until that point, it really was just, can you speak English? I mean, there was no background check. There was nothing done at all. There wasn't really any check done on your degree either, if I remember correctly. So when I reapplied back to Berlitz again in 2009, it was a longer process. There were more documents required, and they did need this criminal record check. Which I probably shouldn't say, but I actually, again, luckily enough, Scotland at that point in time was recognised in the UK. But when I applied for my criminal record check, there was two. There was a local Scottish one, and there was the English national one. And of course, the English national one had nothing at all on my record, so that's the one I submitted, as opposed to the Scottish one that may or may not have had something really minor on it. But anyway.
Okay.
So I submitted the English one, which was the national one. So I came back, and I came back still before kind of really it was too strict. Since about 2000 and so maybe 13, 14, 15, that's when companies started to require kind of actual teaching qualifications. British Council, they kind of grew their presence. They've actually almost lost their full presence in Korea, but at one point they were opening centers like crazy. They were opening centers everywhere. Actually, funnily enough, most of the employees at British Council were and still are ex-Berlitz employees. But that's British Council were the first ones to say, as British Council does everywhere, you must have a CELTA. And I think a lot of companies now are beginning to kind of follow that idea. It's not mandatory, but it's now appearing on application forms as being, teaching qualification, preferred, which is the kind of the beginning. So now it's become more and more difficult for someone that has just graduated, that has no ESL or previous ESL experience or any teaching qualification to get into Korea. And we imagine it's going to get more and more difficult as we go through the next few years. So the biggest change was the criminal record check was one of the first ones. We can talk about the crazy medical checks as well that were also put in place in 2008. There was no medical check in 2007, 2008. Every foreigner had to have this medical check to make sure that they were okay. Then they aligned that medical check with the Korean medical check. So now every person in Korea has the same one. So we take the same one as the Korean ajushis and stuff like that as well. So the first change, criminal record check. Second change now is this requirement or more of a requirement for teaching, like some sort of teaching qualification.
Yeah, because I think when I was there, I did have a bachelor's already, so that was sort of a requirement. And then because I was hired in Korea, technically I had to leave the country and come back in and have my visa stamped as a teacher, the teaching visa. So the great thing, of course, for me was Guam is the closest, I guess, U.S. territory to South Korea. And so Berlitz paid for me to go to Guam, get my visa stamped. I had to be there, I think, for like 3 days. They paid for the hotel and the flight. I actually got upgraded on that flight too to business class on Korean Air, which.
So you kind of owe?
No. I just walked up there and smiled and they were like, we have a seat for you right up front. So it was wonderful. It was like the best flight ever. But yeah, there was a lot of, I think I already had, because I had applied for another company first, and was technically hired, but wasn't really crazy about the whole placement process. I already had I had to have an apostilled certificate. I think an apostilled, what was it? Something had to get apostilled. I think it was my degree.
Your degree, right? And your criminal record check, yeah.
And the criminal record check, right. Which was a whole process on this end, in the States, making sure that I had all of that stuff sent off, and the criminal background check and all of that, digitized and also printed just in case I had to upload it. The resume with my picture on it, which was different than in the States. Little things like that, but and of course the medical check, but the medical check was breezy. I still tell people that story all the time with, Berlitz again had somebody to walk me through the entire day, setting up my bank accounts, setting up my cell phone if I needed it, setting up walking me through the hospital for the medical check. And there was like I think it was there was a chest x-ray, an eye exam, a blood test, 5 or 6 different things. And it was maybe $100 US for the whole thing. And, in the States, just a chest x-ray will set you back thousands of dollars. So it was a kind of a hassle, but at the same time, you got a chance to see a lot of different things that you wouldn't normally see in the States, for sure. So you got that cultural experience a little bit too. And then you were ready to go, and you could kind of start teaching with a little bit of training. I think we did probably about 2 or 3 weeks of training.
So it would have been 5 days. So back when you done it, it would probably potentially still have been called, I think it was still called BIT, maybe IQP, but back then it was 5 days. So basically it's actually 6 days. It's like 5 days of general training and then 1 day for kids. And we still run the same. It's still the same. The content has changed slightly, but it's still the same idea. We do have what's called virtual, because of even pre-Zoom, pre-COVID, that we were bringing on virtual training anyway. But now we pretty much do all the training virtually. So someone in Korea can do it, Thailand, Hong Kong, like someone in the region can do the training. But it's still the same. It's still before you can teach in a Berlitz class, you need at least 5 days of training before you can teach a Berlitz class.
So that all happened sort of in 2013 for me. And then by the time we got ready to leave, shortly after my son was almost born in Berlitz, things had already started to change again. There were the centers started closing up. So you said, of course, I primarily at City Hall, but I think I volunteered to work over at Yoido at least one time. And then Gwanghamun was the other one, correct?
Samsung was the other one.
Oh, okay. Samsung. And then we went out to, and then we went out to a lot of satellite locations and stuff too. So if someone wanted training on site, we could, show up at, Sheila Hotel or something like that first thing in the morning, which was one that I did as well. Which was, oh my gosh. I mean, I seriously had the best students. I had the best time when I was there. But things went downhill pretty quickly. It felt like with the consolidation of the centers. I think just City Hall was open by the time I left. They weren't renewing any contracts. So I was fortunate enough to be brought on as freelance, but my full-time contract was not renewed after that first initial year. And then the teachers union, it was kind of up in the air as to what was going on with that. What other
what
changes?
happened? I think the problem was that what happened was if you remember that when you were teaching, the country manager was from Japan. Her name is Megumi Satoki, and a lot of things have been tried, like a lot of ideas have been tried that were very hugely successful in Japan, but they really didn't transition into Korea. And we were also the regional manager at the time was also at that time, he was a man called Mike Kishani, who had also ran entities in Japan as well. So again, his idea, he was based in Shanghai, but his idea was that it works in Japan, so it should work. And it really didn't work. It was just like the ideas just didn't kind of fit with what the Korean mindset was at that point.
Right.
So we ended up in pretty dire situation. So that's when we closed. It was actually, I mean, it was a kind of toss of the coin, like whether we closed Yoid or whether we closed the City Hall one. So because we closed the City Hall one, those teachers were the priority. So basically what happened was they were then relocated into the other two centres, which was City Hall and Samsung. And anyone who was kind of borderline, whose contract was coming up, we weren't renewing full-time contracts at that point until we could kind of see what was kind of happening. In the end, we actually, up until COVID, just before COVID, we actually ended up, I was managing 14 teachers in City Hall, that we actually expanded the instructor pool. So after a couple of years after you left, we kind of started growing it again. That once things kind of stabilized. The first year after Satoki left, it was TJ. I don't know if you remember TJ. He was the accountant that he kind of took over, and he put a lot of kind of faith in the team that was in Korea, and he kind of let us, implement a lot of the ideas that we'd maybe been unable to implement, let's say. So we kind of did actually really prosper under him for the first 3 years. And we only had the two centres, but we were actually kind of growing the centres in terms of the number of instructors and stuff. And then kind of just before COVID, TJ left, and we were then at that point we were kind of moved under the more of the kind of regional team. So instead of us making local decisions, we kind of made more sort of regional ones, and we were run by a guy called Tony Lee in Hong Kong, who I actually still have a lot of time for. Like, I thought he was exceptional. But as you know, as I'm sure you're aware, like, Koreans like to be managed by Koreans. They like to speak in Korean in meetings. They like to, in Korea you've got the ideas of Jong, which is every Korean has like a kind of common bond. You've got the idea of Nunchi, which is like every Korean understands what a Korean thinks. And so they kind of tend to take both those concepts and say, well, unless you've been in Korea 10, 15, 20 years, or unless you're Korean, you can't possibly understand them. And they kind of blame anything that doesn't happen. They immediately blame it on the fact that, well, you have no Nunchi or you have no Jong. And so, it wasn't exactly plain sailing for Tony when he first kind of took over. And then coronavirus hit, and that was it. It was just from there. Now we don't actually have, we have only four full-time teachers now. Because it's just not possible to, just with everything that happened with COVID, it just wasn't possible to kind of keep the lesson volume. So what happened was, at Berlitz, we were the only company that didn't actually terminate any contracts or didn't actually try and force teachers out. We didn't reduce a single salary, not a single salary across the board, not a manager, not a Korean member of staff. Everyone was still paid their full salary. We were the only academy that still paid full salary. Everyone else either cut salaries or terminated staff. But yeah, a lot of our teachers left because it was online teaching, and there was just no. It was a completely different kind of entity. So a lot of our teachers went home or moved to like Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Japan, China, and stuff like that. So now, we are down to just the 4 full-time teachers, and then the 4 of them are in my centre in City Hall. And the Samsung Centre has no full-time teachers at all, only part-time freelancers. So that was the biggest, that at the end, that was like, in the last 2 years, that's been like the biggest shift, is we just moved everything online. And obviously it means people can teach from anywhere. So now, I mean, I have teachers right now that are in Vietnam, the UK, the US. I have one in Malaysia. I've got a couple like in, there's like a couple in China, a couple in Hong Kong, a couple in Thailand.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a huge change. And for you personally, of course, you mentioned you got married, you had a baby. So you have those responsibilities in addition to just your work responsibilities and stuff. And did anything affect your decision to move out of Seoul? I know that was, Seoul seemed to be sort of the hub for everything. And especially when it came to English teachers, everyone wanted to be in Seoul. That was a hot spot, and for good reason. I mean, it's an amazing city. It's an international city. It's fantastic. The convenience of everything is amazing. So for good reason, everybody wanted to be in Seoul. But what made you move or decide to move outside?
So actually, two reasons. The first reason was the Korea. So like I think maybe when you were there, so 2015, you would probably have been there at the beginning of Park Geun-hye, the Park Geun-hye presidency. And she was actually the huge globally televised protest, like 1 million people peacefully protesting. Really interesting to see the difference between Koreans protesting, and Americans protesting, and UK protesting, and France protesting, that we've seen recently. And you've got like 1 million Koreans with a candle, singing songs. When they leave, they clean up their trash, put it in the trash cans, and leave. You don't even know they've been there. And it was a huge movement. And she ended up being impeached, and she ended up been imprisoned. Actually, she actually just got out this morning, which is quite ironic that we're having this chat now. She was released from hospital this morning. So the man who took over from her.
Wait, hospital or prison?
She was in prison first, and then she got kind of sick. So she was moved into hospital, and then because she's really kind of old and kind of quite sick, they've kind of let her out. So
wow.
She was given I think in the US it's called a presidential pardon. I think that's what it's called in American language.
Yeah.
We don't have it in the UK. I don't know what we call it. But it's called.
You don't do that in the UK.
We don't do
you did the crime, you do the time.
Just stay there. We forget about you. We're like, who's that person anyway? Never heard of them. So she's out. So the guy who took over was the opposition at that time. His party. And he had lots of great ideas. I mean, like great on paper ideas. And like I want to talk about a couple of them actually impacted on ESL. And one of the things that he did was he made it really tough for landlords to have multiple apartments, which in theory was a great idea. But what it meant was that because they couldn't have 3 apartments, they just trebled the price of their 1 apartment. So rental prices just in Seoul particularly just went through the roof. I mean, and we were living in a place called Shindarim. I don't know if you remember where that is, but it wasn't that far away from City Hall. And in the 2 years in our apartment, if we had renewed our rent, it would have been twice the price. Like that's what they were talking about. Our contract wouldn't have been twice because it's illegal to increase twice the price. But what I mean is that every other apartment around us was twice, so we couldn't stay in Seoul. So that was like kind of number one was our number one reason was the house prices. And number 2 was my baby. It was like Bupyeong has that we're like 10 seconds away from the park. I mean, we can see the park almost from our kitchen if you lean out the window and kind of like screen your neck. So you can kind of see it. But it's like it's like 2-minute walk. So every day we take him to the park. Like in Seoul, it's just like it's great, amazing place, but it's like a concrete jungle. You can't see the sky. I mean, I didn't know what a cloud looked like for like 11 years in Bupyeong. Only one half of where I live has apartments. The other half is just this huge park with these really kind of low buildings. So it's great. You can see mountains. You just kind of feel like you're in the countryside. It's really far from my commute, but it's worth it for the other aspect of it.
Right.
So that was the kind of 2 reasons. Interestingly, because I moved out of Seoul, I was not I was not tied up in the kind of ESL foreigner must be COVID tested requirements that happened. So just about a year ago, every foreigner, not even a year ago, less than a year ago, every foreigner in Seoul. So every foreigner who lived in Seoul and every foreigner who worked in a place called Gyeonggi-do, which is like the area that surrounds Seoul. It's a huge area that surrounds Seoul. They're like the two biggest populated, or the two kind of most kind of densely populated places in Korea. And the governor of Gyeonggi-do was a man called Lee Jae-myung, who is the man who lost to the new president. And he was the one who invented or created all foreigners must have a COVID test. So every single foreigner had to get a coronavirus test, like a PCR test. Even though we hadn't been able to go home, we hadn't been able to leave, we were probably the people who were teaching in masks. We were probably the people who were like, living in one bedroom apartments, not the ones who were living with their families because their families were all back home. We weren't going out in like, groups of 10, 20, 30, having soju parties. Some of us were. So what happened was that, they were given a week. And if you didn't get your test, there was going to be like kind of serious repercussions. So that was a real big impact on the ESL community. It was actually really targeted at Southeast Asian kind of construction workers. That was mainly what they were targeting, but they actually had to name it as all foreigners. So it really heavily impacted on like ESL teachers, because of where our center was and because of where I lived, we actually got away with it, that we didn't come under the first couple of kind of waves, and then there was enough complaints to embassies, and like the American embassy, the UK embassy especially, kind of contacted the president and said, look, this is racist, you can't actually do this. And so they kind of stopped it, but they stopped it after about 2 weeks, which meant like 75% of English teachers were forced into getting like a PCR test.
Wow.
So like all my friends, they're not the ones that worked at Berlitz, but all my friends that worked at different, like kind of different academies, like different jobs, the annual journalists that were sent for a PCR test. Like it was, pretty much if you were a foreigner. And so he was the guy who then ran for the presidency. When the other guy won, when Mr. Yoon won, I don't think there was too many teachers that really kind of cried overnight.
I understand. That makes sense.
So
what do you think about then the new president? What is this new administration or the president mean for you specifically, or for ESL teachers?
I mean, I think specifically for us, for the first time, we don't really know, to be honest. I mean, we kind of knew what we were getting with Lee. As I said, he was the governor who, came up with the PCR test scheme. So we kind of knew that if he'd done that as governor of Gyeonggi-do, what would he have done as president? So we kind of knew what we were getting with him. But Mr. Yoon, we really don't know. I mean, it's quite interesting. Like a lot of, if you read the media here, like a lot of, actually not the media in Korea, but a lot of Western media is calling him, like Korea's Donald Trump. Which actually I would agree with that in one sense, and that is that he's actually not a politician. He was never a politician. He was actually he was the man who was heavily responsible for imprisoning Park Geun-hye, the previous president. So he was a kind of anti-corruption lawyer, and he was actually appointed by Moon Jae-in, who was the last president, and they had a huge falling out, and so that's why he moved to the other party. So he's never really been a politician, so we don't really know. I mean, his big campaign was pretty controversial, but now that he's kind of won, everything he said has Korea needs to be unified. We need to be one kind of country. This idea of all these scandals and all these like fights and arguments that we had, yeah, that was just done to win. That's just what you do. But now we have to unite. So we'll see. But yeah, he's having never really been a politician. I don't really know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, to be perfectly honest. I mean,
yeah.
Like it's Lee Jae-myung was a career politician. I mean, his whole life, he kind of, that's what he was. His whole dream was to become president, and he actually became governor of different cities and different areas, and every one was bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So the next step for him was president. So I think a lot of people are probably happy that he's not president, because it's like, maybe there's a chance of a huge change in the country. And for ESL teachers, already they've relaxed the requirements for entering Korea. So under COVID, everyone lost their re-entry permit. So because I've been here so long, I had an automatic kind of re-entry, but I lost that under COVID. So we had to reapply. So they knew exactly who was coming in and out of the country and when and why and so on. So that's already been stopped. It's called KETA, KETA, and they've opened it up for pretty much all the countries that were on it previously as well. So that's one big change. It means that anyone who goes home now, that can get back in with no extra payment. We don't need to register our flights and when we're arriving, where we're staying, and all that sort of stuff. We can just come and go like a Korean, which is what I'd been doing for 10 years almost.
Yeah. That's a big change. That's a very big change. And I know that they're starting to relax some of the COVID requirements in Korea now as well. I think Seoul just opened back up a little within the last few days, right?
Yeah, so we are now curfew, if you want to call it curfew, is now 11 p.m. And the maximum number of people that can gather in a private gathering is 8. It was 6 for about 3 months, and then it moved up to 8 because that extra 2 is such a big help for everyone. I think the logic. I actually had a student explain to me that the logic is you can fit 6 people on one table, but you can't fit 8, and that was actually the logic that I got told. So now it allows 2 tables to be together, whereas you could literally sit 6 people on one table, which for me just sounds like if you have 6 people sitting on top of each other, there's probably more chance of them spreading COVID, right, than if you have 8 across 2 tables. But I don't know. I'm not a scientist.
Well, when you think about like the Korean family, it's usually 2 adults and a child. So if you have 2 families together, that would be 6 people. So there's some logic in that, maybe.
I think there was some logic in that. I think the idea was it would allow 2 families. It would allow company meetings, because usually you have like the CEO, the 2 CEOs. They probably bring their translators, and they maybe bring like a salesperson each. So that's 6 people. So I got the kind of logic behind it a little bit. So hopefully, but in terms of ESL teachers, that has no impact. I mean, we're still. It's really strange that we still need to teach wearing masks. So I've got a friend who's she teaches university prep students, so that they it's like in between high school and university. And she has 30 kids in a class that they've just gone back face to face after like 2 years online, and they're all wearing masks, but they're back in the classroom.
Wow. Okay.
So we're all still teaching wearing masks, like one-on-one classes, group classes, like we're still wearing masks, which is, I mean, as anyone who's ever taught or ever learned a language knows, that you can't actually learn a language with a mask on. If you can't see someone's mouth moving. And not to harp on about my Scottish accent, but really seriously, like no one can understand a word I say when they're watching my lips. You put a mask on, and it's just like these eyes staring at you, like when is class finished? It's people have no idea what I'm saying, right? So I've been really fighting heavily against it for 2 years, but there's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
That's
Except for
for
like
us,
the
that's
clear
huge.
masks. Has anyone, is that even
So,
allowed? The clear
so
face shields or anything?
we actually looked into it, and that we almost got it agreed, but what the feedback I got was, and I quote, people would be scared. Um, Students might be scared of the clear mask, and I was like, I don't understand. Like, and it was like, it looks too kind of sci-fi movie. So I was just like, okay, we'll just teach them with, like pink masks on, like, like Pororo masks, like, Peppa Pig masks and all that kind of stuff. It's less scary than actually seeing someone's face.
Oh wow.
So yeah, like, so I almost got them approved for Berlitz, but in the end it was like, nah, people will be scared. That was it. So okay, so we just went back to wearing. I mean, like, we do wear like those full. I mean, I know like in the US that you guys wear like this kind of surgical masks that.
Yes.
I mean, after 1 hour are kind of almost see-through. Here that we have to wear the full KF94, like the full kind of 4-layer mask and stuff. So they do stop spread. I mean, none of my teachers have caught it, and we've been in rooms with people like, we've been still traveling to classes and stuff, and none of my teachers have actually caught it. So they do work. But yeah, it is just kind of, and that you've seen a Korean summer, with that humidity, it's like 100% humidity, and you're walking about with like a KF94 mask kind of melting into your face. It's like,
I tried to take a class. I only teach online right now, and but I tried to take my dance class. We still have to wear masks, and I misplaced I have an exercise mask, so like one specifically for athletes or whatever. Not that I'm an athlete, but it's for people who are about to sweat and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find it anywhere. Wore the KN95 mask, and I was dying. I couldn't breathe at all in that thing. So I don't know how anyone walks around like that heat that it hits you the same way as like a heavy exercise. It's the humidity really is what will get you. I mean, I remember walking outside in Korea during the summer, and you want to take a shower, like as soon you immediately start sweating the second that you step out the door. So I can't imagine walking around with that. I suppose I'm going to find out soon enough.
I mean, there's unless you're arriving in 2040, you'll be wearing a mask. Like, there's no what's the word I'm looking for? There's just no public push for it. There's just no desire to take masks off. There's just no, it's like when I was back home. I was back home just last month in February, and like, no one in Scotland's wearing a mask. They have one like their arms. If they walk into like a supermarket, they put it on and it's kind of under their nose. In Korea, no. I mean, it's like where I live in Bupyeong, because it's right out in the countryside, it's full of really old people, that you do see people there with like no masks on. But in Seoul, it's like there is literally no push to get masks off. Like, people are not clamoring saying, hey, please let us, like, there's everyone in the subways wearing a mask, everyone in every store is wearing a mask, like, everyone everywhere has a mask on. So I don't see. But that was pretty
commonplace. It was pretty commonplace. I think even when we were there was some sort of a respiratory illness going around even back then. And between that, and I think what I want to say is respectful things that they do in Korea, where if you personally are sick, you'll wear a mask to prevent other people from getting sick. So 2 reasons at least. And then the third being the dust.
The dust,
a lot of times, if the air quality is really poor that day, you'll see a lot more people wearing masks to protect from the dust. So it was already, I think, kind of commonplace to at least wear a cloth mask. And so I can understand why there's probably not too much of a push to everyone whip their masks off and run around screaming.
So I think you'll definitely see it. That you'll definitely have to experience it, because it's going. I think I'll be here to stay this year. I don't see any point this year where they're going to suddenly turn and say, hey, that's get these horrible masks off. So I think it's going to be here
Yeah.
this year, which is fine. I
So
mean, it's just like doesn't help you teaching, but we have so
no.
many online classes. We can take our masks off, I think, at home and stuff when we teach online. So there are ways around it and stuff. But
And what is the ratio right now, you would say, from between face-to-face classes and online classes for you?
In our centre, which is now in Kwangamun because that we actually moved, in our centre, it's about 80% online.
Okay.
So
still really
another way of putting that is in the last 2 weeks, I have seen my full-time teachers for about 20 minutes, and that's not each. That's in total.
Oh wow!
I just don't see them. We just don't, and that's been, for me that was the biggest impact, the biggest change of the whole COVID thing was. I mean, I'd like to. I mean, if you remember, like we had the welcome night for you and your husband, like we all went, it was like 20 of us went out, to a restaurant, like we had welcome nights with farewell nights, we had just like random pizza nights,
right. Yeah.
I was a big kind of believer in, getting everyone together and kind of building that team. And it's just, we just can't do it. I mean, it's like,
right.
Oh yeah, I can do it. I just have to choose my 3 favorites. It's like,
oh no.
Oh, sorry, like one person's going to lose out. It's not fair to be the same person all the time. You know what I mean?
Just say you're not my favorite today.
Yeah.
Just not
so
today.
I actually just started missing myself out because it was just easier.
Oh.
Like, guys, you guys go and I'm just going to stay at home. And they were like, how does that work? And I'll phone in. I'll do it like that. Just put they put the phone on the table and pour a soju next to it and I'll be okay. So it was just one of those things. I was just like, there's been some shoes. I mean, in terms of the biggest thing that hit, that we talked about the presidential change, but the biggest thing that hit the ESL industry has been COVID. It's destroyed it. I mean, not destroyed it. I don't want to be negative, but it's, I mean, centers are closing, companies are closing everywhere. Like we're now getting people back online, back face to face. But for the most part, for the longest part, it was people just sitting at home, like, like was the kitchens and Zoom backgrounds, and which is actually one of the better ones, to be honest, right? I mean, I've had teachers teaching on the beach and in space, and you've got your phone and be like, can you change that background, please? That one's not working. There's a Super Mario one, like right at the beginning. There was like a Super Mario race car one, and I was like, no, guys, no, you can't have race cars behind you.
I've seen some interesting ones. Yeah, I've seen some very interesting ones. So the last big question I have for you is, you have been in Korea now for 15 years. Your wife is Korean. You have a son there now who's getting acclimated to Korean life and that kind of thing. Do you see yourself leaving ever? Maybe possibly moving back to Scotland?
What do you think? It depends on who watches. We were home. As I said, we were home in February, and just seeing him speaking, he actually, like, within the 2 weeks that we were home, he actually said his actual first recognizable full sentence, which was, my sister's got a dog called Tia, and after 2 days he was saying Tia, and then after a week he was saying, Tia, where are you? And it was just like seeing that, because masks are off, and it's like you're seeing everyone talking, even though they have like this really strange, like accent and whatever else. I mean, my family really do have a kind of strange accent. He just picked it up really quickly. I mean, for me, the Korean education system is not something I really want to start my kid in. To be honest, I mean, I want him to be a kid. That you've seen what it's like. I mean, you've seen the whole, academies, like, after school academies and stuff. So, no plans as we speak. But I think. I'm not saying my time in Korea is ticking down, but I think it's not the permanent life that it was before that cyclone was born. Which you understand. I mean, like,
I do.
it changes everything. I mean, it's like, you can have all the ideas and all the plans in the world. I mean, and then it's like, wow, suddenly this little thing's running around, and it's like, yeah, I need to think about what's best for him. So yeah, I mean, not anytime soon, but yeah, definitely. I'm not going to be picking up my pension in Korea. Which actually is not that long until
well, I mean, that's not bad though.
By here, right? But yeah, it's going to be probably within the next like 3-4 years, probably next 2-3 years maybe.
Well, the nice thing, of course, is that you get to take your Korean pension with you. I had no idea. No one mentioned that. Of all the things that we went through when I got hired, no one mentioned that I was going to be allowed to take my pension with me. But that was a huge, very pleasant surprise that I just like cashed it out. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't a ton of money, but it was a lot more than I expected to take with me, and had no idea that I could take it with me out of the country. So
you're American.
It's I mean, Americans don't have that. And it's, you can't do it?
No, I lose it.
Are you serious?
No, I'm actually being deadly serious. I have to cash it in. I have to get it when I'm 60. So no matter which country that I'm in, I get it transferred. So I actually now get a Korean pension. Not now, not actually technically right now. But when I reach 60, my Korean pension will kick in. And wherever I am, I'll get it transferred as a pension. So yeah, all those 15 years, I don't cash it out. If I did cash it out, I'd literally be phoning the yacht right now. I'd be on the phone, be like, okay, guys, like, where do you want to have the villa? Like, which villa? How many and whereabouts? Because I've been here so long. But no, unfortunately, I actually lose. I don't lose it. It stays in the state pension fund.
Really?
And I get it as a pension when I turn. In Korea, it's when I turn 60. In the UK, it's when I turn 65. So if I'm in the UK when I'm 65, and I'm now, the thing is, I'm now in that situation where I've actually spent longer working. Just slightly longer working in Korea than I worked in the UK. I worked in the UK for about 13 years, I guess, in total. Now I've been in Korea for I guess 14 of the last 15. I think I lose the first year actually, so the last 13 years. So it's roughly the same time. So yeah, I'm going to have the Korean pension and the UK pension both getting paid in at the same time. So, but yeah, we can't cash it out. Yeah.
So that's just for Americans?
Canadians. So there's been so many stories over the years. Canadians get double because that's the agreement that they have with Korea. Koreans are in Canada. South Africans don't pay any pension whatsoever, which is really why I swear it's the only reason I don't hire South African teachers. That's a joke, by the way. If you're applying to Berlitz, we'll hire you. Nobody else will, but we will. And we've had several South African colleagues, so that's definitely a joke. And they're wonderful people. Yes, they are wonderful. I still talk to Enda every now and then. So Enda and Sydney and Gerhard and Elaine and Debbie. Yeah, I know them all. Darlene. So yeah, they don't pay any pension whatsoever in their time here. And I think like Australians get 50% back, and New Zealand it's like 75% or something. So the UK is the only country that gets nothing. But that's because we won't give the Koreans their pension back either. So it's kind of like it's because we're really tight, really, to be perfectly honest, right? I just because we probably spend our pension like when we're here, or when they're there. So but yeah, so it's because there has to be an agreement. So my dream was always to stay in Korea long enough for Scotland to be independent, so that they would acknowledge that I was Scottish and not British. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. So
that is a completely different conversation for a different day, for sure. That is a whole thing. Oh my gosh. I would love to have that conversation too, to be honest, because I don't know, as an American, obviously, like we don't know anything about anything that's going on internationally most of the time. And so these experiences teaching overseas, I think, was just one of the best experiences of my life. And definitely, I mean, if I didn't have to move, I wouldn't have left. That was our preferred, and I think it is called the assignment of choice. when in the military, it's called the assignment of choice, was Yongsan in Seoul specifically. So I don't know anyone that didn't love being there.
It's the amazing city, amazing country, amazing people. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to being back. So hopefully,
definitely catch up as soon as you're back. Yeah.
The next time we have this conversation, hopefully it'll be over on your YouTube channel, which is the Soul Scotsman. And
it is indeed, yes.
And hopefully we'll get a chance to sit down and have some makgeolli together. You can recommend your favorite kind. I saw you did taste mine for my zodiac sign makgeolli, so I was pretty impressed with that.
I did.
It was okay. It was okay.
It's actually really good. Yeah, it's the local one here that where I live in Bupyeong. So I'm actually next week I'm going to finish that challenge and actually drink it in their brewery. Hopefully.
Oh, cool! Very cool.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like I actually really like it. It's the local one here, so I can buy it in any convenience store. So it's fantastic.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. So I'll link that in the description box below so that people can check you out on your YouTube channel as well. Thank you so much. And
thank you, Larissa, as well. It was a pleasure. Absolute pleasure. And of course, when you're back, if you are looking to pick up any classes, I know a really good company.
I know a really great manager. The manager's the best.
He's so much fun. So much fun. Yeah.